This is Savio. I've been seeking answers to some of life's most perplexing questions my entire life. In 2014, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and ever since, I realized my calling existed outside of what I knew to be familiar. This podcast is your home for survivors like myself and those who are searching to find meaning to their why. In Season 2, the show includes a mix of coaching sessions followed immediately by interviews with those from all walks of life who have been successful in the business, marketing, coaching, and financial worlds. The intent is to show the human experience in its rawest form so that others may glean insight. Nothing is rehearsed or has been edited. As a board-certified wellness coach, my job is to ask the deep questions of those trying to make sense of their place in this fractured world. I believe life speaks to us in different ways. Many of us listen but don't know how or where to begin. As someone who has crossed the bridge between life and death, I say simply, begin where you are now and get busy living. If you liked today's episode, I would appreciate it if you could share it and subscribe. Be sure to tag me at The Human Resolve so I can reciprocate in kind. So without further ado, welcome to the Human Resolve podcast. Ordained interfaith minister and book author Zehr encourages thoughtful reflection and hope to all those seeking his words of wisdom. But when his own personal endeavors take root, he must question the deeper motive that keeps him from the peacemaker's path. It's good to see you, Jerry. How are you doing today?
It's good to be here with you. Thank you.
Sure. So what would you like coaching on?
Well, it's interesting. I've just retired. I've been writing this book, and I sometimes I get a spirit of discouragement. I've been a minister for 36 years, and sometimes you wonder after 36 years and now you're retired, does it make any difference what you do? Did it make anything? And especially when I was writing the book, it's like, will anybody ever read this book? And I get in this really funk of just like discouragement, and I just would ready to give up, at times. And I get in that place sometimes, and it's not good.
So what I'm hearing is you just finished your book, but sometimes you get into this zone of discouragement. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, you just start to wonder. I mean, you work hard, you try to help people, and then you see people, maybe who've like been a part of my church, and they've been in your study, and they try to grow, and then you see them like post these ridiculous, unbelievable things on Facebook, and you see them get into these things with people, and you just go, have you not heard anything I've said? Have you not done anything? I mean, I think it's anybody in a leadership role probably feels that, but you just feel like, gosh, people aren't listening to any of this, are taking it to heart.
So what would be a fantastic outcome for today's conversation?
I think to help me if I get into that place, how to get out of that, or how not to. What would be fantastic is that I don't get into that place of discouragement at all.
So the outcome would be not getting into discouragement. So if you didn't get into discouragement, what would be the opposite of that?
Oh, I'd be hopeful. I'd be positive. I'd be enjoying all the time. I wouldn't question myself.
And where, I just saw you smiling. Where does that sort of lie? Like if you think about in your body, that sort of idea of joy and hopefulness.
Oh, I mean, it's in my face. It's in my mind. I think when I'm in discouragement, it's in my gut. It's in my, it's heavier. It feels heavy, and joy and life feels up in life.
Would you like to sort of explore a little more of that feeling in your gut with discouragement?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So if you want to just, center yourself and just relax in your seat, you can close your eyes if you feel comfortable or soften your gaze. So I want you to take a couple of breaths in and out. We'll just do a quick scan of the body. Just want you to breathe into the different body parts that I mentioned. So, top of the head, the eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the mouth, the neck, the upper body, the chest, the stomach, the legs, the feet, the toes. Just want to breathe back in and out. When I sort of say the word discouragement and all that's attributed to that, can you describe this feeling in your body, like in your stomach you mentioned earlier?
Oh, I think it carries tears, shame, a heaviness, discouragement.
Fears, shame, and heaviness. Have you felt these feelings before?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think those were I felt a lot of that early on in my life. I wasn't aware of it. I kind of masked it, you know. I felt it inside, but emotionally I was kind of so cut off. But I mean, when I finally came in touch with my emotions, I would feel it. But that was later, when I got to be 30 years old, you know. But I mean, I masked those feelings, those pain, that woundedness, by just pushing ahead or medicating it with alcohol, or just staying busy and not wanting to feel.
And did you ever sort out some of those feelings as you got older after 30?
Yeah, I finally started realizing, I mean, what that was from was early on as a young person. I mean, some of it was probably my father was very authoritarian, had a terrible temper. So he would unload on me, or I was the youngest of the family, or even I was in a very conservative, legalistic kind of a denomination. So there was a lot of shame and guilt. So I never really felt worthy, felt good enough. Um, Always kind of told I was going to be, you know, I just could never measure up. I screwed up all the time. So, and then I became a perfectionist, almost like, you know, I had to do it perfect because I was so afraid if I mess up. And then, of course, you mess up, and then you get even more discouraged
Yeah.
because it's hard to give yourself any forgiveness or grace.
What do you think this feelings of shame and the fear is trying to tell you?
Oh, the shame and guilt is telling me I'm a screw up. I'm no good. You know, you don't measure up. Who do you think you are? Like a lot of that.
Do you find that that's true?
No, not now. Um, Not now, but you know, it's kind of like that deep wound. That's kind of in the deepest part of you, because that was an early formation. So, you know, I can work through it. You know, like if I get in a funky mood or discouraged, I'll just go to bed. You know, right? You know, and then the next day it's better, maybe. You know, I mean, it all depends, right? If it's better, it all depends on if somebody's really angry at me or upset at me. Sometimes how much will that carry on? Um, how much does that stay present? I try to work through it intellectually and reframe it. But yeah, it's an old wound.
And did this wound show up when you were writing the book?
I think at times, I mean, I think, yeah, you know, you wonder, what am I doing writing this? Is anybody even going to read this book? I mean, you know, you pour blood and sweat over it, but there's so many books out there, so many different things. And I'm not a famous author. I'm not a famous anything of that, right? I'm just a regular guy who's been doing work over a lot of years, but so yeah, you don't know, and then you stop for a while, and then you finally get enough stamina or courage to step back in and try it some more.
So what if, I created a miracle for you and this book became lauded? Everyone wanted it. Everyone, is completely enamored by it. What's the feelings like then for you?
Well, of course, the feelings are affirmation and feelings of good and feelings of satisfaction that people are getting something out of it. Will that take away that feeling of discouragement? Probably not, just because I don't know. The older I get, the less of that spirit of discouragement I have. But it's a deep wound.
What do you think it needs from you?
What needs from me? What, the wound?
Yeah, like how can it heal?
Wow. How can it heal? You continue. I have to feel a sense of my own self-worth and affirmation, and retraining my mind, not letting that critic voice, not listening to other people. When other people get upset, I try to tell myself, don't take it personally, step outside of it. But you have to work at that, and especially if it's somebody who really gets upset, and then it's hard. I think any of us, we take that in, and then um especially if you're a sensitive soul or something. But so what does that wound need? It needs for me to become a little hard ass, a little tougher, right? A little more thick skinned. So like it ain't gonna hurt me.
And is that realistic?
It's gotten better. It's gotten better, but I don't want to become such a hard ass that I'm not accessible and warm to people and loving. Whenever you're vulnerable and you open yourself to people, you're open to getting hurt. So I think the more I can have confidence in myself and feel a sense of my own self-worth and not taking it personally from other people, that's a big thing for me, I think.
So is there a middle ground between a hard ass and the kind soul that you are now?
Yeah, there probably is, of course. It's never either or. There is a middle ground. I'm not sure what that would quite look like.
Suppose that you embodied that. What do you suppose that would be like?
Oh, I think I would be confident, caring, loving, but not guarded, thick-skinned. Enough where like almost those type of things would bounce off. I wouldn't let them come in. And sometimes I'm even good at that, but then I get tired, or you get frustrated, or you start second guessing yourself, and then it's like, that's when they come in, right? And I don't know if anybody can do that perfectly.
So if on one hand you were kind, caring, and then on the other hand thick-skinned, which is closer to your heart?
Oh, kind and caring is closer to my heart.
Yeah. Do you know anyone who's thick-skinned that you admire?
Thick-skinned who I admire. Somebody who's thick-skinned who I admire. Well, I guess not, because I might see people who I don't really know from afar, but I don't know what they're feeling internally. So I don't know if I really know somebody well who's really thick-skinned.
So, Jerry, what do you think are some of the ways that you can move closer, inch closer to thick skin, but still retaining, your demeanor, your nature?
I don't know. You have any suggestions?
Well, you mentioned a few things there. You mentioned that you reframe things. So how would that be in this new scenario of getting yourself, like you mentioned, still, the kind, loving natured person that you are, but yet more in control of not letting things bother you. You mentioned also affirmations. Do you do those as well?
I'm better at that. I used to discount affirmations. I'm better at taking those in and affirming those. But sometimes even the critic voice inside of me says, that's bullshit. No, that's not true. So, I mean, I still have to work at it.
So what do you do for your physical, biological health?
I do try to do some walking and biking a little bit. And one of the things, my wife and I go out every morning or sometime in the evening and walk around our flowers just to enjoy the flowers and the beauty and that which we've been a part of helping to create.
You mentioned earlier about when you wrote this book, you sort of questioned yourself that does it even matter? So these other things that you do for yourself, biologically and physically, and affirmations, and do you think those really matter?
Well, they do, because I get some immediate gratification. I get some immediate feeling. When you're walking, your heart goes better. You do that. But when you're working on a book all by yourself, it's like it's hard until because and luckily, I mean, I had some people who I asked for feedback, and they were, they didn't say like, I mean, they were encouraging. They were encouraging as I kept on. I didn't have anybody say, that's a stupid thing. Why don't you do that? So I did get some affirmation from people to keep going. But when you're doing something all by yourself, I mean, it's easier. When I ran a marathon, I ran 4 marathons. When I would run a marathon, I ran it with another buddy. Well, that was good because he was encouraging me. We were encouraging each other. But when you're by yourself, or you're a leader, when I was a pastor and you're the only pastor of the church, and people get upset or they take, and I realize intellectually they're upset and they want to dump it on somebody, and so they dump it on you. And earlier I would just take that all personally. Now I'll try to work that through, but it still takes some time to do that. So I wish I was, thicker skinned, that if they said something that really was kind of ridiculous, or I knew was, I always try to entertain. Is there some truth to this? Do I need to get some feedback? Do I need to hear something? I don't want to be not open to suggestions, but if I assess that and then realize, okay, this is their issue, that I could just do that and move on and not, and that would be thick-skinned to me, that I didn't let it stay in my body or in my mind too long.
You mentioned a few things there about social support. When you were writing this book, did you have any social support?
Well, a little bit. I mean, I didn't. I mean, I probably, you're writing it by yourself, it's, it wasn't like I wasn't in a book club, our book, our authors group, where you could share some of your stuff with each other. I didn't have that. No. So, but and yes, as a leader, when I was a pastor, I had other ministers to give you some support. Yes. And that, but, at the end of the day, and you can do that, but that might not happen for a while. You might not have some of that social support right away. And I want to be strong enough by myself that I can just be thick-skinned enough on myself that I don't have to, whatever, needs other people.
You mentioned previously about sort of growing up in a household where, people were really hard on you. I'm curious, did you share your book with any of your family members?
Well, I have now, and it is interesting. Now my father's passed, so he's no longer with us. And my mother was always supportive, so she's very proud. And my one brother, he's actually kind of surprised. I mean, he's different. He's different now too. Of course, he's matured. So.
So how does accountability look like? Like, trying to, you accomplish something so big. How do you suppose you can celebrate that within your life and your body?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to, as people are saying things now to me, I'm trying to just positive things to me as they're reading it now, and it's exactly like one of the niche, because there's nothing like this book out there, and it's connecting for people who are spiritual but religious, but the ideas of God, and I mean, so it makes me feel good, and I'm trying just to enjoy that and savor it, and just be in the moment with that.
Do you believe these positive comments? Do you believe these people are sincere?
I do think they are sincere. And I feel that, although once somebody said, Jerry, you're really this intelligent person, because I did so much research and all this writing, and and I kind of laughed, and I was like, because I just don't see myself as an intelligent, PhD. Now, I did some really work, and my wife and I talked about it. She said, but you're not intelligent like I referred to this friend of mine who's very intelligent IQ. I don't have an intelligence like that, but I have my own emotional intelligence, or my own whatever, spiritual intelligence. So I realized that, and I had to reframe that, in my own mind, because I don't see myself as intelligent like a PhD person.
And do you think that an intelligent PhD person would garner more success from this book?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that. And I know that for myself, that doesn't determine your self-worth, your degree, a lot of people who have PhDs who, whatever, have their own stuff. So I can work through it, right? But again, it's that wound that is very primal that's still there. And I don't know if it will ever be gone. Will it be? Do you think it will ever be gone?
Well, I'm curious about sort of this wound aspect, because I wanted to ask you, what do you think it feeds on?
Oh, it feeds on the negativity. It feeds on any negativity, because it reinforces that piece of that still believes that I really am nothing, that I am no good, so any of that negativity, it's just all of a sudden like, it's like food.
Mm-hmm. Which has more weight? If you've received 10 glowing reviews, positive, and 3 negative reviews, which has more weight to you?
Well, today I would say the 10 positive affirmations do. It used to be I'd get 10 positive and 1 negative, and I'd focus on the negative all day long. Earlier on, I would almost get depressed from it, right? But now I think I would do the 10, and people who gave me negative reviews, I'd say that's okay. I mean, I realize my book, my writing isn't for everybody, so that's okay too.
Well, you mentioned so many interesting things there about sort of that deep wound and sort of not feeling good. If I could offer a resource to you, are you open to it?
Yes, please.
Sure. So there's this author named Rick Carson who wrote a book called Taming Your Gremlin, and he talks about gremlin fighting. This gremlin basically who tells you you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you can't do that, you can't do this. He basically calls it your gremlin fighting. So if I can share with you, mine is, I'm dating myself here, but it's from the movie Ghostbusters, when they would have that gun, and then my gremlin is zapped and then trapped in a metal box. Now the gremlin can never be dead; they can only be trapped. But trapping them allows you freedom. So I just wanted to offer that to you.
So how do you, and you've done this for your own life, I'm sure. When you say you trap it, does it, I mean, does it pop back out? Are you
Yeah.
able to keep it trapped?
Yeah. So, gremlins are, of course they're, figments of our imagination, but I sort of embody it, create a form for it. And yeah, I trap it as much as I can. But as you know, things always get in the way, especially as you try to climb the ladder or try to climb your own hopes and dreams. There's always ways that somehow it slips by you. But the rule of thumb goes, keep it at bay as much as you can until it finds a way to escape.
Now, the name of that book was Trap?
No, it's called Taming Your Gremlin.
Taming Your Gremlin. I'm writing it, Taming Your Gremlin by, who was it?
Rick Carson.
Rick Carson? Okay, great. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So how does that all sort of land for you in terms of trying to find ways to mitigate this, this opposing force in your life?
Well, I'll have to think about that. I don't know what that image would be. How does that work when you say trapping the gremlin?
Yeah. For some
how did
people,
that work for you?
Some people it's a voice. Some people it's an image. Some people it's someone from their past. Some people it's a scary movie or some figment of their imagination that they conjured up. For me, I know when I was going through it, and obviously from time to time it creeps back up. It's just a knowing that that's not serving me well, and it needs to go.
Okay. I like that. I mean, I think that's a new, I don't think I had any tools to, I mean, to really do something with it. To me, it was just, okay, get it out of your mind, just get it out. But trapping it, I've tried to heal it, I mean, I tried to heal the wound also. And that's gotten better, but a wound is a wound. So yeah, I'll try the idea of trapping the gremlin.
So how can you show up more accountability then to heal the wound, as you say?
Well, I think when that comes up, what do you mean when you say accountability? Let me ask.
Well, you mentioned you tried a couple of things to heal the wound, but it's still a wound. So how can eventually, not all the time, but most wounds do heal. So how can you take accountability for healing at least most of that wound, even if it might still be there?
Yeah, I think I have to continue to do those things that I'm doing, which is to try to give affirmation, to try to reinforce in who I am in goodness, to realize that the voice of discouragement is not my voice, it's not God's voice. It's just from another person, or it might be from society, but it is just this negative voice, and so don't honor it. Don't let it stay rent free in my mind, and as you say, try to move to the good things of gratitude.
And when it pops up, or how do you handle the obstacle?
I think I will, pay attention to it, be aware of what it was that causes it, and then try to step back from it a little bit to look at it, I think, so you can get some perspective on it.
So earlier, you mentioned sort of this idea of discouragement in your stomach. How does that land for you now in terms of processing all this?
Yeah, it feels lighter. It feels dissipated right now. I feel a little more integrated, uh, integrated, more unified. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Jerry, I think this is probably a good time for us to transition into the interview portion. So tell my listeners and audience more about, what you do and who you are.
Well, I've been, as I've been a pastor for 35 years, working with interfaith causes, and because I shared about my journey as a young person, I really went on a spiritual exploration for myself, seeing God in a much broader way. I used to think of God as this being out there, kind of judging you, or that you pray to and give you, what you wanted, like Santa Claus would give you things. And then I've really, as I've studied other religions and saw the depth, I think of the breadth of God is much more. God is spirit. God is energy, and the sense of consciousness of the universe. That I've really been about helping to build ways of peace with interfaith. And so I wrote this book, and this has been the book that I've worked on for 2 years, called The Peacemaker's Path: Multi-Faith Reflections to Deepen Your Spirituality. Because my premise is that most of us believe we have so much more in common than what divides us, and that I wanted to show that in our major religions there are core teachings that are very similar, maybe not exactly the same, but have some of the same strains to them, as far as forgiveness, loving your enemy, finding inner peace, karma, or law of attraction. You reap what you sow. And those themes that we have seen can give us a better appreciation, I think, and depth of seeing God's work, and how we can experience a greater understanding of ourselves with others. It's not for me to, if somebody's Christian or somebody's Jewish, to give up their faith tradition, or somebody says, I'm really not any religious tradition, but it's to open us up to say, let us ask questions, let us search within, and maybe within ourselves. Part of the journey we've been talking about is the process of finding inner peace, self-love. And it's interesting because, for many Christians, we focus on loving our neighbor, but Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. And we forgot a lot about loving ourselves. And so I've taken these 6 themes, and it's not a book of theology. It's not this too heavy. It's 40 days. It's 6 themes, but you can read each day. It's like a little devotion or a reflection. And I read that reflection that I've written in that certain theme. And then it's scriptures from different faith traditions, some questions to reflect, and then a prayer. And the prayer might be from a Native American or Hindu or Buddhist. And so the feedback has been good, that people have said, boy, this has really brought me some sense of peace, or has given me some ways of thinking new about some of these people. I never knew Muslims. I just, thought I saw something on TV, and I see that really the Quran teaches some beautiful things, or Hindus or Buddhists. So that's my hope, is that if people who are looking for something to help them on their spiritual journey, that's very accessible, that this might be something that they can either, read, or it's on Kindle or paperback, hard copy. So I'm hoping.
So, in your research and your sort of, compiling of all this information for your book, what have you found to be, if you was to encapsulate it into a phrase or a sentence, that is that universal truth?
Well, of course, I think the universal truth is love. It is how we love ourselves and love others. It gets manifested, played out. The golden rule we see is that way. It's also the law of what some would say karma, or Jesus says you reap what you sow. Some speak about the law of attraction, but this is I believe is a universal law. I've experienced it. I see it in other people's lives. What you put out there, you will get. The more love, more generosity, more caring, you will receive that over and over again. If you put out negativity, anger, frustration, bitterness, envy, that stuff comes back to you. And so, people who are always negative, are always anxious and feeling upset, they seem to have a lot of drama around them. And because I think internally we've got to work on our own stuff. I can't change somebody else. All I can do is work on myself.
So, Jerry, the world has been through so much the last year and a half. For like any listener out there who wants to, sort of be at the highest plane, but just finds it so difficult, what are some tips that you can give them to still be in flow and still, be at their highest self?
Well, I think one of the things I've done for me, and I think as you're talking, is I've given myself grace. I've given myself some space to mess up, and it's okay. And not to feel like if you mess up, you're just a terrible screw up. In fact, it's part of the journey. I did the best I could. It didn't go so well. I wrote a earlier novel before this that didn't sell many copies. It's okay. And I did it because I wanted to do it. But I learned a lot from it, and hopefully it will go on. So I think that's one of the things. And I think your thing about the process of what our thoughts are, and the gremlin are those things within ourselves to keep at bay so we can protect our heart.
So, Jerry, what's the dream?
The dream? I say a little more about that for me.
Yeah, you just launched this book. What do you hope to achieve after?
Well, I don't really have so much I don't have any goals or future. I'm enjoying the fruits of this now, and my dream is that people will be inspired to be peacemakers. People will feel the sense of, we've seen this polarization in our society, and rather than being angry and being one of those people who just discounts other people, that we begin to listen to each other. The more we listen, as you have done so well at listening to me, and I have felt heard and valued in this conversation. And when we can all feel like somebody understands us, maybe they have a totally different point of view than I do on politics or religion, but I still want to value them as a human being. And when people feel valued, I think we begin to find reconciliation and healing and building of relationships.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. I'm just thinking about my own life in terms of practicality. I have somewhat of a schism with one of my family members. As much as I do this work, it's so interesting because life challenges you, right? It's like I can do all these things for other people, but I'm a firm believer in preaching to myself as well.
Yeah.
How do you think you come to some type of reconciliation, knowing what you know, but yet coming across diametrically opposing views, and sometimes those views are harmful and hurtful?
Oh boy. And I actually have a family member my same way, okay? Who just thinks all of religion and all my stuff, they don't want nothing to do with it. And we don't really talk very much. This person doesn't really does have some respect for me, I think, but doesn't want to have any, because it was jammed down her throat. I get that she's angry, but I also have to keep at bay because I don't want to be hurt or wounded, and this person can be very vitriol. So I think sometimes it has to take two people for reconciliation to happen. And every once in a while, I might put an olive branch out there, or I might see some indication that the person is doing something different. But until you feel like it's a safe place and safe ground, I do stay at bay, I don't think I mean, we're not going to have kumbaya with everybody in the world right now. We can do our part, but I do think we have to protect and honor ourselves as well. What What do you think?
No, I 100% agree with you. It sort of made me think about, like, I grew up Catholic, so it made me think about, the Ten Commandments that I sort of, grew up with. And sort of wondering with you, what are your personal commandments?
Wow, I think that's a great question. What are my personal commandments? I think I it is the teaching that Jesus gave. It is to love God. I think to honor the divine within and beyond first, then to love my neighbor as myself. And I've realized so that the second commandment is to love myself, to care for myself. If I don't care for myself, I have nothing left to give. And I have nothing there to offer. So I think, it is staying connected with the divine. Second, it is to love myself. And then third, it is to love others. I like that, the commandment that Jesus gave.
And how do you think, on a practical level, with all this diametrically opposing views that we all have, how do you think we all as a society can inch closer to that?
I think it just comes by relationships, one-on-one. I actually had a podcast with a gentleman who was a strong Christian. Christianity was the only way, right? And he just kept on going, but Jerry, Jesus is the only way. And I get it, and I kept on maneuvering around and trying to find common ground with him. And I really do. I said, I think that if I lived where you lived, we would be out there working together, helping the poor or doing something to find common ground. We might disagree on certain points of view, but rather than focusing on them, let's focus on what we have in common. And it's interesting because I can do that with people of other faiths more than I can some people who are in the Christian tradition. I have some Christian ministers who won't even talk to me because they're just so different. I would talk to them. I'd welcome them in. Jehovah's Witness come to my house. I love having them come in and talk to them because to me, it's about relationships. But being said, that's not the way it always is. And so I just think we can take a step, our own way, whether it's at work, to give dignity and value to another human being, especially when there's somebody maybe who's different, somebody at work who comes from a different background or culture or diversity, who feels disenfranchised or put out of place, and that we can make them feel like they're a part. So nobody is put outside.
That's beautifully said. Wonderful. All right, Jerry. Zehr, can you tell my audience where they can find you on the internet and where they can buy your book?
Well, of course, the book's on Amazon, or you can go to my website, Jerry Zehr, Zehr, jerryzehr.com. And you can contact me there if you want to have questions or you want to have other conversation. And I have some of my blogs that I write, but mainly I would love it if you read the book and you like it, give it to somebody else, pass it on, or find ways of connecting with some other people who are doing interfaith work or doing peace work, to trying to build ways of unity and healing, whether it's between our races, between religions. But I think when we're at the higher best of ourselves, we can bring the richness of God's love present and make heaven on earth as good as we can in the little ways, in our own little ways.
Make heaven on earth. Beautiful. What a beautiful view. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate today's chat. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much. And I hope that your listeners were able to connect with some of my story. Thank you for the work you did. You are a great coach, and I appreciated the ways you opened up. It didn't force me to do things, but helped me to be reflective, and I felt very good about it.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Jerry. Hi there. I really hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast episode of The Human Resolve. If you feel that others may enjoy this episode as well, please share socially at The Human Resolve. They can also visit my website, thehumanresolve.com, where I offer one-on-one coaching sessions, daily prompts to move you in the right direction, sync directly to your smartphone, and a subscription to my weekly newsletter where I probe into the secrets from living smarter to feeding your 3 brains. If you could also help me out and give me a review and rating on this platform, because I do care what you have to say, I would really appreciate it. Now, get out there, my friends, and get busy living.